Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. Today I'm going to talk about classroom interaction. I learned everything from edX. And here are our course presenters and Pennsylvania University. Now, first of all, I'm going to talk about IRE. You know, European university classrooms often follow a teacher-centered structure where the instructor lectures, give assignments, evaluate students, and this pattern reflects a centuries-old authority structure in education. Despite changes in modern teaching, classrooms still rely on traditional turn-taking led by teachers. And a key feature, a key feature in traditional teacher-centered classrooms in uh, classrooms is the IRE. What is IRE? Okay, I stands for initiation, R stands for response, and E stands for evaluation. For example, initiation is teacher asks a question, and response is student answers. And E is evaluation, the teacher evaluates the response. It's simply that. And this pattern uh, direct students' attention to specific details, which is good and encourages problem solving during readings, especially, and make them assess with the prior knowledge, especially in history classes. And um, the negative effect is if you overuse it. In especially language learning, it can shape language learning into like correct versus incorrect rather than functional versus non-functional, which differs from everyday communication where explicit evaluation is rare. And IRE is not totally negative, but analyzing it helps teachers to understand what they are teaching, how classroom interaction supports learning, and why certain patterns still persist. And we basically talked about how teacher-centered classrooms are and which functions IRE serves and additional functions. And now I'm going to talk about two main types of initiation questions. First of all, we have known answer questions. We know the answer of them, like they have only one correct answer. And it's a typical of the IRE pattern, and they can also called test display questions. And open-ended questions are um, also called authentic, genuine questions, um, information-seeking questions, and no predetermined answer here. Like more conversational. For example, in known answer questions, we're saying, what is the capital of Turkey? You have only one answer, right? Like you're saying Ankara. But when you say, how do you like living in Ankara? It's conversational, it's optional, right? And how these distinctions break down in real interaction. Um, First of all, let's talk about known answer questions. And okay, known answer question, teacher asks something, for example, what time does a school start? And students say, I'm not tardy, and which led accusation. Like if a factual question becomes a part of an accusation denial sequence, right? And an open-ended question, which is like, teacher asks, where are the crayons? And student says, I didn't do anything with that. And it led to accusation. And A non-answer question may also lead an open-ended answer. For example, a teacher asks, "What color is my shirt?" And student says, "I would call it tangerine." And like student treats it creatively, not a fixed answer. And open-ended question can lead non-answer, which is teacher says, "How are you going to continue this paper?" And student says, "With a conclusion," which is student assume there's only one single right expected answer. And it's have some negative effects on students. First of all, students assume that all questions seek a one single correct answer, and they may misinterpret open-ended questions with reflective questions as tests, and they become confused when new teachers or new curriculum expect something creative or unpredictable answers. Now I'm going to talk about IRE versus IRF. We know what is IRE, right? Like IRE sequence, initiation, response, evaluation. This in here or evaluation part is only about right and wrong. But Gordon Wells says that if we change it into IRF, it's better because this time it's intuition, response, and feedback. Where the third turn, where the feedback is not a final evaluation, it's a generative feedback. And feedback encourages ongoing interaction, deeper thinking, and student participation. And now I'm gonna talk about how feedback improves the third turn. Like instead of simply praising your students, you can teachers can offer meaningful feedback. For example, instead of saying your pictures are great, you can say your pictures helped me enjoy your story, and you can ask something else. And for example, in math, instead of saying that's the correct answer, you can ask your students like, yeah, that's the correct answer. How did you get the answer? You're pointing to their journey to reach that process, to reach that answer, right? Like these questions invite students to reflect on their reasoning, as I said, explain their processes and engage critically. Critically is the key word here. And we have an example, Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Wonderful science class example. Um, he, the funny thing about him is, um, students' questions here, whether he know the right answer or not. It's like he introduces questions as coming from other students, not from himself, which encourages students to think independently. And as I said, students even question whether he knows the correct answer or not. And we have um, Karen Johnson's research on adult English learners. In a conversation like about a movie, the teacher uses feedback to validate the student's answer. For example, okay, that's a good movie, and expand it into natural conversation. Oh, that was about a little boy inside a big man, wasn't it? Like this helps sustain learners' participation and models real conversational turns. We have high level evaluation, Martini strength. High level evaluation includes two things. First of all, certification. What is certification? It's it's acknowledging students' answer. And second one is incorporation. Incorporation is connecting the student's answer to the class discussion. And these moves support critical thinking. Keyword is critical, and student engagement and continued talk. Now, I'm going to talk about turn-taking patterns are cultural, not universal, and what I mean by that. While IRE, like initiation, response, evaluation sequences seem predictable to many, not all students share this familiarity with these patterns. Because participation in classroom talks depends on cultural knowledge and prior social experiences with language. And wait time affects who gets to speak. Short waiting times favor fast, assertive speakers, and quieter or slower processing students may lose opportunities to contribute. Sometimes, for example, if I know the answer or if I have a prior knowledge, I'm fast, but I would like to make some research or Google it or read some things before answering the questions. I feel more secure in that way. And if you're a slower processing student, you may lose opportunities to contribute. And third one is cultural differences in timing. Um, Interaction norms differ across communities. And fourth one is known answer questions can discourage some students because they're going to think like, if you know the answer, what's the point of saying the answer? Like, why ask if you already know? You already know. And this can silence students with such school-based questioning. And evaluation practices vary culturally. Like in some societies, praising an individual is unusual or even inappropriate. And now I'm going to talk about what is a procedural display. Procedural display is a term by Shirley Price, I guess. It describes situations where teachers and students perform classroom participation without real learning happening. What I mean by that, pretending to have done the reading, nodding as if you understand, guessing answers based on intonation, not knowledge. For example, your teacher says, "Oh, um, like if she's reading the answer key is like reading the question, she's saying um a a cats, b dogs, like intonation, based on intonation, not knowledge. And even if you don't understand, when teacher asks, did you understand, you're saying, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understood. And how IRE enables a procedural display. What was it? IRE in initiation, response, evaluation sequence is highly predictable, right? And students can easily respond correctly without understanding, like understanding, reading the teacher's cues, hints, and following classmates' hints, or relying on tone and patterns rather than meaning. And this predictability can hide the lack of actual learning. Procedural display in action. We have an example here. In from a high school English class, teacher asks, "Where's the pavement?" and student guess repeatedly using cues, hints. And teacher grows Impatient, but continues the IRE routine. Like eventually the correct answer appears, yet the information had been on the page the whole time. Um, the entire exchange is a simulation of learning, actually not genuine engagement. And who is affected here? Um, Students unfamiliar with IRE patterns may struggle to participate, and students too familiar with IRE patterns participate automatically and superficially. Thus, both groups may lose learning opportunities here. And fifth one, the broader meaning. Uh, Procedural display mirrors real life situations where people fake it or go through the motions. And this behavior isn't always bad, but in classrooms it can become dysfunctional if it replaces meaningful learning. Now I'm going to talk about familiar classroom patterns can limit learning. Traditional turn-taking routines, as I said, IRE sequences, may feel natural to some students, but can inhibit learning for everyone. Students familiar with these routines may slip into what? Procedural display, performing participation without real understanding, and students familiar with them may struggle to participate at all. And predictable routines avoid deeper questions. Like these, there are some criticized classroom questions, like discouraging questions, like whose fact are these? Like, what is a fact? Why are we doing this? Like, predictable IRE patterns keep classrooms orderly, but may prevent complex questioning and genuine learning. Non-traditional classrooms encourage the unpredictable. It's alternative classroom formats can allow more students to participate and invite different students to ask questions and make space for varied types of questions, oftentimes open-ended, and incorporate students' own knowledge and experiences. But even with IRE, more wait time and more developed evaluations can make interaction richer. Now we have an example, a fifth grade literature discussion. Students discuss a book here, After the Goat Man, and a student whose name is Tom, shares a personal story of a guilt similar to characters' experience. And other students, not the teacher, other students ask him questions like, what happened? How? And they help him clarify details and connect his story to the text. And the teacher does not evaluate here with the good or the bad. And no IRE pattern appears here. And like student led open-ended discussions expand participation and encourage deeper engagement. And these approaches can be used across all subjects, not only literature. And what he did, he uh, tied his current events to students' interests. Now I'm going to talk about a comprehensive summary of classroom interaction talks. First of all, teacher-centered classrooms. What we said, we have IRE, like initiation, response, evaluation, and European university classrooms often use teacher-centered questions, teacher-centered education, where students respond and students' response are evaluated, and the teacher lectures and asks questions. And we had a pattern here. I, initiation, teacher asks a question. R, response, a student's response. E, evaluation, teacher evaluates the answer. And it may limit students' engagement and creative thinking, because they will treat language as if it's wrong or right, correct or incorrect, rather than functional or non-functional. And we talked about types of questions in IRE: known answer questions, one correct answer; open-ended questions, no predetermined answer, more conversational; and known answer questions may be interpreted as open-ended. Open-ended questions may be treated as having what one right answer. Interactional context can blur these distinctions, and students familiar with IRE may treat all questions as tests, while others might be confused by predictable question patterns. And we talked about types of questions and improving IRE with feedback. What was it? We changed it. We said not IRE, it is IRFE, because we're giving a generative feedback, not that's correct, that's right. Like, in especially what did we say in math class? Instead of saying, oh, that's the correct answer and finishing it, we're saying that's the correct answer. How did you get that answer? Because we're letting students to talk about his or her process to reach that answer, right? And we talked about cultural variations in turn taking, like IRE sequences assume familiarity with school-based norms, but students from different cultural backgrounds may need more time to uh, wait to answer, interpret questions, or praise differently. And we talked about procedural display. It was what? Like nodding, even if you didn't understand, or like it's it's like a mask. Uh, it was performing in classroom without real learning. And we talked about non-traditional classroom innovations. Traditional routines limits questions. Student contributes and deep learning. So non-traditional approaches allow students to ask more authentic questions, more unpredictable questions, more wait time for reflection, and incorporation for students' experiences and knowledge. We had an example, fifth grade literature discussion. Teacher does not evaluate. Discussion is not teacher-centered, it's student-centered. And um, some key takeaways across talks. Like, classroom interaction is culturally shaped. Predictable patterns help some but exclude others, as you know. And IRE sequences can be useful for evaluation, uh, transformed into IRFE, promote learning, and misused in procedural display, masking lack of understanding. And awareness of turn-taking question types, waiting time, and cultural differences is crucial, so crucial for teachers, for inclusive and meaningful learning. And what we want from students, deeper engagement, encouraging, we need to encourage deeper engagement. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next week.